Hello guys and welcome back. In this lecture we're going to be talking about 3D in Adobe Illustrator. So we're going to create a new document, and in order to open our 3D effect we have to create an object, for example like this one. Okay, remove the stroke and give it a color. So in order to activate our 3D, we either come here to effects and then 3D and materials. Now these are the 3D effects, or we come to our windows and then go to 3D and materials. So we'll then open the 3D and materials panel, which is this panel, and it enables us to add the 3D effect. Now when you come to effect and look at 3D and materials, you then see that we have these ones: extrude and bevel, revolve, inflate, rotate, materials, and then we have this one which is called the 3D classic. Now under the 3D classic we also have extrude and bevel classic, we have revolve classic, and then we have rotate classic. Now what's the difference between these two? The difference is this 3D classic is the old type of 3D in Adobe Illustrator. Okay, so in older versions of Adobe Illustrator we do not have these 3Ds and we do not have this 3D panel. We only have this 3D classic as a 3D. Okay, but when Adobe Illustrator was updated, they now introduced this new 3D, okay, and also the 3D panel. So this old one, which was the only 3D available at that time, was now made the 3D classic. So this 3D classic actually has some features which the normal 3D do not have. Okay, so there were some features that they didn't want to just disband, so they just made it into 3D classic. Instead of totally disbanding the 3D effect, they just made it into 3D classic and then added this new 3D in Adobe Illustrator. So we are going to start by looking at this new 3D, okay? And also you have to understand that this new 3D, that's these ones, are the ones linked to the 3D panel. This one, this 3D classic, is not linked to the 3D panel, okay? To the 3D and materials panel, rather, not 3D panel, 3D and materials panel. So that being said, I'm going to start by selecting my shape, and actually I'm just going to create multiple shapes, okay? The next shape I'm going to create will be this shape. Okay, so we have this shape. Then I'm also going to create this other one. Okay, this other one, and maybe even another one. And what I'll just do here is I will kind of divide this one by half. So select the both of them, go to my shape builder tool, hold down Alt and drag like this to delete them. Perfect. So I'm just going to experiment the 3D here, and we will then look at the 3D classic. So we also looked at 3D from the fundamental course, and we looked at it in details. So if you like, you can check that course, and if you're coming from that course, you definitely understand what we mean, and you can skip parts of this video. That's the part where we are only going to be covering the 3D and materials. That's the new 3D, and you can now forward to where we'll be covering the 3D classic, because we didn't cover the 3D classic in the last course. So select your shape, go to effects and extrude and bevel. When you extrude and bevel, it's then going to give the effect, the object, this 3D effect, okay, this extrude effect. Okay, so you can either extrude, and you can select this one which creates a flat plane. Okay, all of them have different options here, and you can select this guy which extrudes, and for the extrude we have an extrusion depth, and you see what happens, right? And we have this cap where you choose between this one and this one. So this one will open the cap here and this one will close it. Then we can choose bevel. Now you click bevel, we'll see that we now have a bevel on our 3D shape, and we can choose the profile or the shape of the bevel, and we can see that this guy is classic, and this guy is round, this guy is convex. I'm just going to try to go through all these options as fast as I can. Okay, so I can look at the other one. So you can see all the other shapes of bevel, right, or the profiles. Yeah, so that's what we can achieve with them, and we can achieve a whole lot of things. We can even determine their width, okay, with this one, the width and the size, also, or rather the height, and also the amount or the quantity or copies. Right now we have 3 copies and we have 4 copies now, and you can see how they update. And we can even determine the space between the copies, right, the spacing. We can make the spacing big, we can make the spacing small, and then we can choose whether to bevel inside or outside, and then we can reset to the normal, and we can remove the bevel. And then we have this other one which controls the rotation. Now for this one we have presets, we can choose from presets, right, like this. There are different presets we can choose from, and we can manually edit them like this, manually edit them, their rotation. Okay, yeah, so these are what we can achieve with these. Now when you select any of them, you have different options for the cap and the, okay, you have different options here, but the rotation remains the same. Okay, so for the plane you don't have some of the options we have here, like depth, okay, because the plane does not have a depth, and we also do not have this cap, and also we don't have the bevel because we can't bevel a plane, right, but we have the rotation. And when you look at revolve, we don't have some of the options we have here, like the depth and the cap, okay, but we have some other ones like the revolve angle, and then we have the offset, okay, and we have the offset direction, and so on and so forth. And we also have this guy which is the inflate, and for this guy we have the depth option. We don't have, okay, we have the depth option, we have the volume, of which we don't have in other ones, and we have cap, and the bevel is now activated and the rotation is activated. So I'm just going to stay on the bevel and choose rotation like this. Maybe for the depth I'll reduce the depth, okay. Perfect. Now we have the materials options here. Now whenever you create an object and add the 3D effect, it's been given the default material. Now they call it the base material here, and we can add other materials, okay, like this one is the canopy diamond material, and this other one is whatever, the concrete material. And we have a lot of materials here, and the materials kind of will consume more system power as you add them. And we also have here where we can add new materials. So the materials have to be substance materials, okay, if you're familiar with Adobe Substance, okay, so the materials have to be in that format. And yeah, you can select the material, maybe a custom material, and delete here. So that's one of the things you can do also. And when you come down here, you are then able to edit the material, okay. And here we have material properties, we have main parameters, the resolution of the material, you can choose a higher resolution, and then we have the paint color. So different materials will kind of have different sets of settings. This particular one has 3 or 4 different paint colors, right, and this is more of a marble material. Then we have the paint roughness and the pattern. You can see how it's updating. Then we have the pattern wrap intensity. Then we have the stain density. Then we have all these other ones. We have position offset Y and X, and many other ones. We have materials properties where we have height range, we have height, position, and so on and so forth. I advise that you go through them on your own. So different materials would kind of have different sets of settings. If I choose this one now, you see we don't have those colors. We instead have shagreen color variation. Okay, so definitely different materials will just have different sets of settings. So you just go through them. And then we have what we call lighting. Okay, so this is how the materials will be lighted, or this is how our shape will be lighted. So we have this guy, which is a preset, and it's the standard lighting. We have the diffuse lighting, and of course you can see the changes being applied. We have the top right lighting, which will send the light from the top left, and then we have the right, which will send the light from the right. Then we have the color of the light. We can even change the color of the light. We can change the rotation, okay, of the light. You can see the effect. We can change the intensity, make it very intense or less intense. We can change the height of the light. So basically that's the height of the light from the object, right? So the lower the height, the less effective the light will be on the object, and the higher the light, the more effective it will be. And then we have the softness, that's the softness of the light. Okay, and then we can activate ambient light or not. And then for the ambient light, we have the intensity. Okay, and then we then have shadows, which we can activate. And of course, you have to know that all of adding a lot of settings like shadows will kind of require system power. So for shadows, we have position of the shadow. Should it be behind the object or below the object? We have distance from object. Okay, shadow bounds. You can increase the shadow bounds like this. Distance from objects, and so on and so forth. And finally, we have what we call render settings here. So rendering will enable us turn our raw image to kind of a more refined image. So it's going to add sharpness, going to add lights, going to bring out the beauty of our materials. Okay, basically going to add a lot of life to our object. Those who have experience with 3D, okay, with 3D design will know what I mean by rendering. This is where we choose our render settings. We can enable retrace, and then it's going to render. And then we can choose the quality. Then we can choose the render settings. So the render settings, these are the raster settings rather. We can choose the resolution, and then we can choose all these other ones. And we can now choose the render quality, whether it's low render or medium render or high render. And just know that rendering requires system power. So the more powerful your system is graphically, the more easily it will be for you to render. And then we have this reduce noise, and we have render as vector, render, whatever. So I'm just going to maybe choose medium. Okay. So when I come here, I will then render. Okay, so I can click render, and it's going to render. Or if I have the settings set, I can just click here and it's going to render. So I'm just going to click render, and we'll see how our render gets completed. And it seems our render did not complete. Let me just click here and see. So when I click here, we then see that the rendering has started. Yeah, now our rendering is done, and we can see all the effects come to life. Now when we zoom in, we see that our shadows now look very realistic, and our object really looks more realistic than it was looking before. So that's the effect of rendering. Okay, I'm just going to delete this guy and create another one. So I'm just going to try to create different 3Ds, okay, with these shapes here, different types of 3Ds with these shapes. So for this guy, I'm going to select the guy and maybe make the color a little bit darker, and then come and click on revolve. Now we see what has happened, right? Adobe Illustrator has revolved our shape, and we now have this 3D shape. When you come on revolve, we see some options like the revolve angle. So So right now it's 360. As you reduce the revolve angle, it's going to reduce the revolving effect. Okay, so 360 is a complete revolution. And then we have the offset. This is the effect we get with the offset. Okay, and we have the offset direction. So we either have it from the left or from the right. So this is the effect we get from the left. When we click it from the right, we'll see that we get it to create something similar to a bowl, right? We have the cap, and it just works similar to the cap in the extrusion. So basically, these are the features we get with the revolve type of 3D. And we can really apply it to different objects. So let's add the revolve to this object and see. So we can see that it has revolved it into a sphere, right? We can see that it has revolved it into a sphere. Let's try revolving this guy and see what will happen. We can see that it has revolved this guy into this donut kind of shape, right? Yeah, so that's the revolve effect for you. Let's try revolving this guy. You see, revolve. And we can see that it has revolved this into a cylinder. Okay. And when we come on the shape, we can actually rotate it using these gizmos here. So we can just click and drag, and it's going to basically rotate our shape. Okay. Like this. Perfect. Now let's try revolving something interesting. Let's try doing something interesting and then adding the revolve effect. Okay, not creating anything specific. I'm just trying to create something dramatic so as to see what interesting shape our revolve effect can give us. So I'm going to make this guy darker. Then I'm going to revolve. Perfect. Now we see the beautiful flower vase we have been able to create with this effect. I'm going to just change it to the right and see what we now have here. So you see the effect we've been able to create, very nice. And the possibilities with this tool is limitless, really. Possibilities are limitless. Okay, so revolve. We see what we have come up with, right? We see what we have come up with, right? So that's the revolve 3D effect for you. Now let me try other ones. Okay, let me click the inflate. So you see, so it has inflated this, and it's more like a balloon. Okay, it's more like a balloon now because it has been inflated. And you can also apply this to a shape like this. Inflate, and now we have what looks like a balloon, right? Okay, so in the last course, in the fundamental course, Adobe Illustrator course, we created a lot of projects using this effect. But in this course, we are not going to be creating a lot of projects with this particular type of 3D. So if you really want to see more of this, I advise you check that course. Okay, that's already if you're not coming from there. So what else? So basically that's it for this effect. So I'm just going to delete everything and then start to check the other one. The other one we spoke about, that's the 3D classic. So create this guy, give it a darker color. Okay, and let's see what the 3D classic has to offer. So click on the guy, go to effects, and then 3D and materials, and then 3D classic, and then click on extrude and bevel. So when we click on this, we see this is the 3D classic, and this is how 3D used to look in Adobe Illustrator. Now we have given it the extrude effect. Now we have the extrude depth here, where we can choose how far we want the extrusion to go. Okay, and then we have this one, which is the bevel. Okay, so we can now see the different bevel profiles. Okay, and we have this one complex 2, and we have here for the height of the beveling, and we see what we are achieving, right? And yeah, we have different profiles. You can check the remaining. We have this bevel extend in and bevel extend out, and we have the surface. Now we can give it a wireframe surface. I mean, okay, we just see it in wireframe mode, right? And we can also give it just close this guy and go to appearance. And we can also give it no shading, so it's not shaded. Okay, it's just flat, it's not shaded. And we can also give it the diffuse shading, which is this one, and the plastic shading, which would then give it this kind of nice finish. And basically that's it for this one. And of course we can choose the rotation. You can choose different profiles or different presets for rotation. And of course we can manually edit our rotation like this. Okay, perfect. So let's just click the one we've created and go back to our effects. Now when you come to more settings, you then see where you can edit how light will affect our 3D here, or 3D shape here. So on this place, you can actually manually grab to direct the effect of light on our object. Okay, so as you move it around, you then see the effect of light on our object. And we now have here where we can determine the light intensity. We have the ambient light intensity. Okay, we have the highlight intensity. Okay, so it's going to determine how much highlights we have on our object. And then we have the highlight size. We can make them very thin, can make them very large. Okay, then we have the blend steps. You can increase the blend steps for smoother blending. Okay, and then we have the shading color, which is black. Then we can also choose the custom color, so that we select the custom color we want to use for shading. Okay. Basically, these are the things we can achieve with this. And then okay, now let's look at another feature of this 3D. So I'm just going to create a shape here, and effects, 3D and materials, 3D classic. Again, extrude. Now let's make our extrusion depth bigger. Then let's come to this place where it says map art. Now what map art enables us to do is enables us put on designs or objects or symbols rather on our 3D object here. So we can come here where it says symbol and then choose a symbol. So let's select this guy, and immediately you can see that it's now on this face, right? And we can increase the size by dragging like this. You can hold down shift to make it even. Okay, so that's one of the things we can achieve, and we can navigate through the surfaces by just clicking here, and it's going to highlight the surface. Okay, we're just going to add them on the surfaces. We can see that these 3 surfaces. So for this one now, I'm going to put this symbol, select the symbol, and just increase the size like this. Perfect. And then for the last side now, I'm going to select another symbol. Maybe let's let's select this one, increase the size. We're going to select another symbol instead. Just choose this one, hold down shift and drag it, then drag it like this so as to fill the space. And here you see that we have now added symbols on our ship. Now there are other options here. Now this one will actually apply shading on our symbols. So depending on the direction of lighting, or the effects rather of lighting on our object, it's going to apply shading on our symbols. Okay, and then we also have this one which makes our geometry invincible. So with this we now have our geometry invincible. Okay, so we can just OK, and now we have symbols around our object. So how can you make custom symbols or symbols you have created be applied on our object, right? Because we have just been able to have access to the symbols that Adobe Illustrator provides for us. So in order to do that, we have to come to symbols. So these are the symbols, and then kind of add our symbol. So let's assume we want to create a symbol from this text, like AI. Okay, Adobe Illustrator, and just increase the size. Okay, all we need to do is just select it and drag it here, and we now have our symbol. Now we put in the name of the symbol, and we can just ignore every other thing and click OK. Now we have it here as the symbol, and when we come and select map art, and let's say we want to add it here, right? We just select the guy and go, and now you see our new symbol here. Now we can reduce the size and just place it and OK, and perfect. Everything now is perfect. Now that's how to create a symbol and add it to your shape. And yeah guys, with this we've come to the end of this lecture, so see you in the next one.